Anubhav Sinha has had a very interesting film career. His initial filmography was packed with commercial forgettable action ventures other than Das and Ra 1. He was a part of the film industry, but there was not really a distinct voice which would really make the audience point out that this is an Anubhav Sinha project. But something changed when Mulk came out. Here comes a director who had clarity on what he wanted to say, and the attempt to make his politics subversive was abundantly clear, shining especially in movies like Article 15 and Thappad. But when one becomes a fan of their own ability to say so much through their stories, often the treatment tilts towards preaching rather than catering to the story, and that is precisely what happened with a film like Anek. Moral lessons and teachings being spilled over the screenplay of a film that do not aid the story but are aimed at lecturing the audience. His movie Bheed, that has been embroiled in controversy ever since its release, really made me wonder whether the craft of the director is refined in this case or not. The trailer was met with immediate backlash for comparing the displacement of migrant workers when the lockdown for 21 days was announced to the partition of the country. Trade analysts on social media, whose portfolio is mostly to report on the numbers of the film, made their moral duty to stand against the film and such topics being explored. Whenever a film or series has massive outrage before its release, I withhold any thought regarding the film's quality and treatment because history has proven that it is a classic case of the public jumping the gun and dismissing a movie even before it has been seen. While the comparison to 1947 is displaced entirely and has been removed from the film's final cut, I went in for this film with a clean slate and was surprised in clearly noticing that the intention of the movie is entirely different from what is presumed by the public. The case of films or individuals critical of the establishment being termed as lies and facing severe backlash is becoming rampant more and more. And what's crazy is that the film does not villainize the segments that the public assumes it is aiming to portray to be evil. The case of the strides our scientists and doctors made in providing vaccinations to the public is as much a reality as the displacement of migrant workers in their own land. Both these events can occur in coexistence and still be someone's reality. The dismissal of an event just because one does not experience it is becoming a worrying trend online. Irrespective, Bheed focuses on Surya Kumar Singh Tikas, played by Rajkumar Rao, who is given duty to manage a check post where there is heavy movement of people wanting to cross the border to go back to their native homes. The characters that congregate at that check post, which includes a daughter cycling her drunk deadbeat father, a mother wanting to pick up her daughter from boarding school, a bus filled with families and managed by a bigot watchman, and a healthcare worker providing aid to those who are showing symptoms, all form the chaos that formulates Bheed. This is a dark time if we think about just what transpired 3 years ago. While a lot of us were in the luxury of our homes with loved ones, migrant workers beraved the streets. Misinformation was rampant, services were stalled, and the concept of masks and sanitizers wasn't the norm like it is today. The grim news of casualties piling up and families not having the ability to bid farewell to their own loved ones. And one was just compelled to stay patient and hope for this to be not the new normal. What I liked about this film compared to Anubhav Sinha's previous venture Anek is that his commentary or political leanings don't get expressed at the cost of the writing of the film. This may only be slightly jarring with respect to caste politics that gets explored in this film. This comes from a sense of privilege, so do take this with a grain of salt. If I say during dire circumstances when one needs to cross borders, why are people constantly bringing up their last names and debating about each other's worth? This becomes the running commentary for Rajkumar Rao's character, who despite wearing a police uniform is reminded of his worth, even sometimes by himself. The repetitive nature of reminding one's last name is sprinkled throughout the screenplay, and while I thought that it took away from the circumstances at hand, I realized it's my privilege that makes me say this, as one, I have never been reminded of a hierarchy with my last name being spilled out, and two, when met with a state of panic, humans often come in conflict with one another, and it all stems from a source of feeling uneasy and unsure about their future and security. The harassment individuals faced for showing minor symptoms, the hopeful nature of some who thought that swift action will be taken from authorities, the information being dispensed, jokingly also mentioned as TV nahi to WhatsApp dekho, mana ki dono hi pagal banate hain. A result being the perception that one had that one can only get the virus if they went abroad. The privileged bubble of some whose slight discomfort is one's everyday reality. The favors the influential seeked for. The compulsions that the civil servants had on just to follow orders. The role of the media and what its focus should have been on versus creating panic. All of these elements are showcased brilliantly in the film, giving you flashbacks to the post-apocalyptic like time as there was huge civil and social unrest within the country. The assumption by the public who hasn't seen the film is that it may be critical of the government and this annoys them, but the reality of the film is to focus on the circumstances and how people come at loggerheads with one another when everything is so unsure around them. The purpose of the film is not to point fingers, but to shed light on how despite our differences in the moment of adversity, we only have each other. This is showcased with Pankaj Kapoor, who clearly has an aversion towards Muslims, as the movie focuses on what was termed as the Tablighi Jamaat incident, pointing fingers towards Muslims being responsible for the spread of the virus. But the intention of the film is not to showcase how this staunch Hindu in the film is a villain, but how he acknowledges eventually humanity will persevere at times like this, and these differences become immaterial. What I wished for with a movie like Bheed, which has a brief running time, is that it was more emotionally hard-hitting. I think they missed the boat in really making a storyline that will break you from within, even though just looking back at what was transpiring during that time, you will recall so many instances where your will and spirit was totally broken. When you have such talented actors who absolutely put forth solid performances, by the way, I wished for a more emotionally impactful tale through the events that transpire at this checkpost. The writing by Anubhav Sinha, Soumya Tiwari and Sonali Jain needs to be appreciated, especially as it explores the compulsion of the labor class to return to the city that they can never call their own, how systematically they have been made to serve the rich. Being described as ज़मीन के जानवर, शहर में उन्हें समुंदर जैसा लगता है, तैरे या डूबे समझ नहीं आता. The assumption by the public that the police in this film has been showcased to treat the public horribly deliberately is also false, as these public servants merely follow orders, and that too at a time where the virus and the knowledge surrounding it was constantly evolving. Rajkumar Rao is at his vulnerable best, aided brilliantly by a strong Bhumi Pednekar. Ashutosh Rana and his predicament also makes you understand where his anger and frustration stems from. But it really is Pankaj Kapoor who stole the show for me. His close-mindedness, his apathy towards people other than his own, all of this leads to a tale that goes through a whirlwind of emotions. Anubhav Sinha in a very smart fashion integrates great moments of humor with both him and Rajkumar Rao. All in all, Bheed turns out to be a film that is compelling yet not exceptional in its storytelling. Such a traumatic chapter of India's initial battle with the virus deserved a more emotional tale, but it isn't as close to being as inflammatory or problematic than the public assumed even before its release. On an entirely contrasting note, the other Bollywood release that took me by surprise and I have to tell you about is Chor Nikal Ke Bhaga that just released on Netflix. Yes, little to no marketing, but hey, it's here and I love Yami Gautam, so I had to see it and talk about it. I saw the trailer and remember being like, this may just be a forgettable Netflix venture, nothing more and nothing less. But if I could really describe a film as a concise, largely entertaining and clever thriller, it would be this film. The movie, directed by Ajay Singh, focuses on a couple, an air hostess and a businessman who collaborate together to transport diamonds on an international flight back to India. The plan of course doesn't go according to how they envisioned and the commercial flight gets hijacked. Now as the couple is dealing with the terrorists and the flight is landing at the Kullu airport, the events that lead up to the mission and the chaos in the flight forms the basic premise of this largely entertaining film. From the onset itself, I have to tell you, we have often talked about on this channel the meet cute in Hindi films and how a lot of the writing just doesn't know how to explore the dynamic of the initial meetings or the infatuation stage. But I have to say that Yami and Sunny have really an organic development of comfort between each other in this movie. There are no cringy set pieces or rambling dialogues, just a sense of getting accustomed to one another. I credit Yami for a lot of it because she seems to have great chemistry with all her actors. What I liked about this film and why I call it a concise movie is because it wastes no time in getting to the point. Its flashbacks are momentary to provide you context. Not enough to emotionally break you, but just enough so that you empathize and understand characters' motivations. I have to say, as I was exploring the beats of the film and the madness that unfurls in the plane, I could see Sunny Kaushal slightly out of his depth. There are moments like when Yami is threatened physically by goons and it should naturally produce a reaction of anger from Sunny, but there is a restraint in his outburst that also makes me feel there is a lot of scope for improvement for the actor. This is not true, however, for the case of the supporting cast. Both Sharad Kelkar and Barun Chanda are brilliant as the investigating officer and the home minister respectively. It made me also think that Barun Chanda, the legend that he is, as a villain or mob boss in a Hindi film would be the perfect casting. When there were only 45 minutes left in the film, I wondered, this literally did not conjure up any surprises for me. And then, the onslaught of curveballs commence, and it throws you off every 10 minutes or so. I did not envision the twist that I cleverly executed. A sign of a good thriller is if you're constantly in doubt about not only the perpetrators but the motivations of the characters. Yami Gautam shines in this regard, really being the soul of the film. You notice the same in an impressive performance like in A Thursday, and I hope commercial Bollywood cinema takes notice of the same because she deserves so much more than just having digital releases. She really does deserve to be in the big leagues, and moments from this performance reminded me of peak Urmila Matondkar. Chor Nikal Ke Bhaga is a really fun and entertaining thriller that is in sharp contrast to an immersive, emotional tale like Bheed, which is in theatres. They are in two opposite ends of the spectrum, but at least it makes for a range any film buff would dream of in terms of movie offerings in the weekend. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Bheed and Chor Nikal Ke Bhaga. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.